Hello everyone. Welcome to Google Classroom Basics. I am Dr. Desiree Alexander and I'm happy to take you on this journey. So what we're going to be doing in this video is actually going through Google Classroom, how to get there, how to set one up, how to properly use it with students, and go through the entire process of using it. Now, this is not a tips and tricks video. It's really the basics of using Google Classroom. So we're going to hop in and get started. So to get to Google Classroom, you have three ways you can do that. I am going to be using Google Chrome as my internet browser. So I'm going to come here to what's called the waffle or the grid. You can click that and you can find the Google Classroom button. That's one way you can get there. Another way you can get there is by coming to the Omni box where you type in the URL and you can type in classroom.google.com. Right? So you can get there that way. Depending on the device that you're on, you usually have an apps button either right here on a Chromebook is usually down beneath. But if you click there, you may be able to find it. There's a whole bunch of ways that you can get to Google Classroom. Just pick the one that works best for you. You can even just do a simple Google search and search for Google Classroom. So however you want to get there, let's get to our Google Classroom. Now, because this is a video, you can stop it, you can pause it, and then work on your own. So I'm just going to go straight through all of the information, but you are able to pause and stop at any time, rewind it if you need me to repeat. Okay, so we're in our Google Classroom. Yours may look like mine, or it may show what looks like a gray whirl, because you've never touched your Google Classroom before, and that's fine. As long as you see Google Classroom up here, you're in the right place. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is create a Google Classroom. That's when we're going to come right here to the plus sign. Click the plus sign, and you'll have join or create. If you only see create, that means you're in the system in your district as a student. Not a big deal. It's just your IT has to do one extra thing for Google Classroom to work correctly. So all you need to do is let them know. Join is when you actually want to join someone else's class as a student. So for example, if I was a teacher leader at your school and we were doing a book study, I may tell you to join my Google Classroom. But we're going to come here and create. So plus sign, create. The only line you have to fill out is the top line, but you can fill out the rest if you would like to. Usually on the top line is where you're going to put your subject. So especially if you're middle and high school, you're absolutely going to put your subject right here. If you're elementary or definitely lower elementary, that's when you need to decide how do you want to create your Google Classrooms. If you want to put reading, math, spelling, and have a different classroom per content, you can do that. Most people would just put Dr. Alexander's class and then put everything in one class, but it's really up to you. So I'm going to use the naming convention of putting my subject up here. So let's say my subject is English. Now, usually under section, that's where I'm going to put third period, third block, third hour. And I usually leave these alone. But you can put whatever you want to here, is up to you. But these are the two that are going to show on the main page. Click create. And then give it a couple of seconds or even a minute to create. So I have my Google Classroom. Yay! You should see stream, classwork, people, and grades. Your stream is where announcements go. Classwork is where you're going to be most of the time in Google Classroom. That's where all your assignments live. People is where all of your students will be listed. And grades is where the grades will be. We're going to start on the People tab. So go ahead and click on the People tab, and you have teachers and students. The only reason you would invite someone as a teacher is if you want them to co-teach the class with you. So if you want someone to be able to do everything that you can do, you can invite them as a teacher. If you have, let's say, an administrator that says, hey, put me as part of your Google Classroom, I want to see what the students see, you're not going to put them in as a teacher, you're going to put them in as a student. To invite a teacher or a student, you can come here to the little man with the plus sign. But the difference is you have 3 different ways to invite students. We're going to talk about those a little bit more in depth. So one of the ways to invite students, and the only way to invite teachers, is the little man with the plus sign. So if you click here, you can either type in the name or the email address, depending on the district. Sometimes the name doesn't work, but the name or the email address. So if I start typing in a name, there I go, I can click it, and now I can type in another name or email address and invite all of them at the same time. So I'm going to show you what that does in a second. So I can click invite. They'll show up on my list as someone who is invited, and that's it. I'll do it for an example. So this is how it will look because they're invited, because they have to actually accept. Now I can do the same thing with students. Click here, the box looks the exact same, right? And then they'll be on here as invited. Now, the second way that you can invite students is this new little invite link up here. So if you want to actually send them a link in however you send them information to join, and they click on the link to join, all you'll have to do is click copy link right here. That's the little copy button. And now I can go send that to someone. If someone actually clicks on that link, this is what they will see. Oh, well, I'm in the same account, so ignore that. I'm going to go ahead and get to a student account so you can see a student side of it as we go. So if a student will click on that link, or anybody else besides you, is going to make them sign in. And then it's going to say, hey, do you want to join that class? So if the student clicks that, they will be in your class. So those are 2 ways. Now, usually if you have a small subsection of students, and what I mean by that is, let's say you only have 30 students, maybe you teach littles, then many times they like to use one of these because all the student will have to do is click join. If you use this one for the teacher or the student, this is how it looks to them. They'll see a box just automatically pop up on their dashboard, and they just click accept. So a lot of my teachers of littles like that because they can just click accept and they're in the classroom. I can even have them do that right in front of me so I can make sure that they're doing it right. Now, if you have 150 to 200 students, that's probably not the route you want to take. So what you probably want to do is invite your students using the class code. So I want to show you how that looks. But to get the class code, we can't get there from the People tab. We're going to have to go to the gear. That invite button just leads you to the same spot that this does. So we're going to go to the gear. This is where all of your settings live. We're going to ignore the rest of the settings right now and just stay on track. So we're actually going to scroll down to where you see general. And this is what I need to invite my student. So notice you have the exact same invite link here again. It's the exact same if you get it from here or if you get it from the first place I showed you. But we want to concentrate on the class code. So this is the class code that you can give to your students. And what your students will do is they will go to Google Classroom, hit that plus sign and they will join your class. So it kind of puts it more on them than on you. So if they can type in, and read letters and numbers, they should be good to go. Now, you can either, highlight this, right click on it and copy it. Or of course, you can use your keyboard shortcut, Control C to copy, and then Control V to paste. But you can copy this anywhere you want to and send it in a newsletter or however you want to get it to your students so they can join your Google Classroom. But you also have this handy dandy display class code. If you click here, it displays it big, and you can even click this little box in the corner to make it even bigger. Whoop, whoop. Now notice you also have the invite link again. So you have multiple places where you can get that invite link. And that was the whole link. So a whole bunch of different places to get that. But we're going to use the handy dandy old-fashioned class code for our student to join. So we're going to go back to the student account. And instead of joining by class link, I just want them to join the old-fashioned way. So I'm going to go to Google Classroom as a student. I'm going to click on Join Class, the plus sign, and notice all they can do is join. So this is what I meant. If you ever click on it on your account and this is all that pops up, you need to contact your Google admin or your IT. But your student can click this and they can't create, they can only join. And then they would type in that class code and hit join. Now my student is coming into my Google Classroom. They're in. So notice the students see everything except for the grades tab. Yay! Now the student only needs to do that one time. So however you have them join, whether you type in their name, whether you send them the join link, or whether you use the class code, they only have to do it once. Because the next time they come to Google Classroom, their class is going to be sitting here waiting on them because they're already enrolled in it. So all they'll have to do is click it and go in it. So they only have to join once. Let's go back to our Google Classroom. So a couple of more things with the class code before we go back to the People tab. Let's finish out this little section. So notice it says Manage Invite Codes, and this is your code. Turn on, turn off, or reset. So the cool thing about this is once you get all of your students into your Google Classroom. So let's say I have 30 students in this one class, and I have 30 students in my Google Classroom. Well, what you can do is come here and turn off your class code. There's really no reason to leave it on. It's kind of like closing your classroom door. You have all your students in the class, close that classroom door and keep it a little bit safe. So you can do that with your Google Classroom too. So if I click turn off, it's going to turn off that class code, and all of my students who are in my classroom are still here in my classroom. So I don't have to worry about that. What that's going to do is anybody that tries to come in, they won't be able to because that class code is now dead. If I come here and turn it back on, it's just going to give me a brand new class code that I can give out to any new students. Again, my students who are in here are in here. It doesn't affect them at all. Now, the other thing I can do is reset the class code. So if something ever goes wonky with your class code, for some reason it's not working or just something is weird, you can come here and reset it. And all it does is gives you a brand new fresh class code. I will tell you that I've never seen a capital letter in a class code yet. So if you see a big O, that's not an O, that's a 0. So if it's a tall O, that's a 0 because I've never seen a capital letter. And I will say that some of my teachers just get a headache trying to explain that. So if they see a 0 in their class code, they'll just automatically come and reset it. So you see how that little O, well, that looks like an O, but the 0, some students are like, that's a capital O. So they'll just come and reset it and just don't even worry about it. So those are the things that you can do to your invite codes. We're going to go ahead and go back to the People tab. We don't want to get off task. Click the X. And now we're back at the People tab. So let's wrap up this section. So notice if you invite them, it shows up this way because they haven't accepted it yet. But if they join using the class code, there you go, they're in here. Or if they join using the invite link, they're in here. So my student is in here. We're good to go. I have one student. I can organize my students by last name or by first name, depending on what I want to do. And this is my student's first and last name. Student is the first name, one is the last name. So let's see a couple of other things you can do with your students on this list. So notice I have an actions button, but it's grayed out. If I click this little button right here, that's going to choose every student on my list. So it's kind of your select all button, the one that's right here by the actions. But I can also come here and choose individual students. So I'm going to click student 1, and you'll see the action button becomes active. If I click here, these are the 3 things that you can do with your student. Email them, remove them, or mute them. So email them depends on if they have an email address in the system. So notice what it did is it's bringing me to my email, and it put the student's email address right here. So I can actually type out the email to them and send it. Now, if I said all students and I want to email them, it will do the same thing and put your whole classroom email or all the student emails up here so you can email them. Now, if the students don't have email, then that's going to go nowhere. Remove. If you have a student that drops your class, goes to a different class, or just leaves your school, you can come here and remove them. Last but not least, you have mute. So if you have a student that does something inappropriate on Google Classroom, you can mute them. If I come and click mute, it will tell me the student can still submit their work. Other students will not see them. I like to say they're a ghost. They're like a little ghost in Google Classroom. They're still there, but nobody can see them. They cannot reply to other students, and they cannot comment or post. If I mute a student, it puts this little symbol right here by the student on your list. This is really helpful so you can remember that the student is muted. And if you have a co-teacher and the student says, I can't post no more, it's like, okay, baby, let me go see. Well, a co-teacher can come here and see, somebody muted him. I'm going to leave this situation alone. So I like that it gives you that little warning, like, the student is muted. If the student earns their rights back, you can come here and unmute them. So now they'll be completely, they're not a ghost anymore. They're back alive. And then there you go. The 3 dots right here is just another way to email the student. So same thing as going here to the actions. Last but not least on this screen is invite the guardians. So how Google Classroom works with parents and guardians. You have to come here to each student and click invite guardian. You have to type the guardian's email address in, because their name, unless they're part of your contacts, their name is probably not going to be there, right? So you would type in their email address, click invite, and then it says that this parent was invited. Okay, so notice it says invited, and then they have just gotten an email that says, hey, so-and-so invited you, sign up. So that's how that works. And that is not an active email address. So at Gmail is my email address if you had a question. So notice now that I've put a guardian in here, if I click the three dots, now I can invite other guardians. So now I have 2 guardians for that student. I can remove guardians. Well, I'm going to show you that. Well, yeah, let me remove these. And there you go. So I'm going to invite. I don't know if it's going to let me invite my. Yeah, it's not. Okay. So I'll keep that there. And then invite and remove. And then you can also email your guardian. So if I click this, it's just going to open up Gmail again and have this email address. I can also email all of my guardians at the same time. Pretty cool. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, Desiree, I have so many guardians. How does that work if I have 180 students? Well, this is the cool thing about this system. Now that I've added this, whoever includes this student in their Google Classroom, this is going to automatically show up. So the cool thing is, if you just set up a system like, hey, school, every first period, put in all of your students. If we do that, then the whole school will be in, and we don't each individually have to do it. So that's the awesome thing, is you can just say, pick a homeroom or pick whatever class period you want to. That's your focus. Those 30 kids are your focus to get all the parents and guardians enrolled. But then when that student comes to my class in 4th period, their guardian will already be there. So it's a really, really cool thing. You don't have to put in every single student. So I'm going to come here and remove guardian. And there you go. So that is how the People tab works. Now and that's it for the People tab. You may have a question right now of, well, what can the guardians see? They cannot log in. The only thing that the guardian gets is an email that shows them what's going on in Google Classroom. I want to show you a copy of that email, and we're also going to move on at the same time. So what we're going to do is go back to the gear. So we're going to answer that question and move on to our settings at the same time. So let's click back on the gear and finish this off. Scroll down so we can stay on task of guardians. And you see under general, I have guardian summaries. So let me show you an example of the email. If you don't see that little see example button, that is okay. This is an example of what parents will get. This is a weekly summary for Felix. It shows the student work that's missing in history and English and when it was due, what's due next week in history and marine biology, and then a snapshot of what has been posted in each class. You cannot tell Google what to put in the snapshot. It just puts some stuff like announcements, questions, assignments. So there you go. This is all the parent gets to see. They cannot log into your Google Classroom. They cannot do anything like that unless the student gives them their username and password. If they don't, this is all the parents get. Last thing for guardian or parent summaries is if you don't want your Google Classroom to be in that guardian summary email, you can turn it off. So you can say, I don't want this class to be in there, and then click save. Usually it's going to automatically be turned on. But let me tell you, remember your district controls this account. So if you see it grayed out, that means your district has decided yay or nay to guardian summaries. So you can only do what you can do. If you did turn it off, you want to turn it on at some point, you can just click it and it's going to say, hey, do you want to turn it on for just this one class or for all the classes you teach? Up to you. And notice I have another See Example button there. So maybe if you don't see it right here, maybe if you turn it off and then turn it back on, maybe it will bring you there. Haha. So there you go. And remember, you always have that save button at the top when you make a change. So let's scroll up and look at the rest of the class settings. So you have class details. You can fill this out however you want to fill it out. I usually just leave it as is. But if you want to fill it out, you can. I will say that sometimes your student accounts can see this and then sometimes they can't. So I've had student accounts that, of course, could not see it at all. And then every now and then Google will do an update and then suddenly your students can see it. So I don't know. But I just leave it blank and I move on. If you spell something wrong, let's say you spelled English wrong, you can fix it right here, but there's also a different place that you'll need to fix it. And I'll show you that when we get to the dashboard. Under General, we've already talked about everything for invite codes. We've talked about Guardian summaries. So now let's talk about the other three buttons right here. Stream. This is probably one of the most important buttons that I can show you in your settings because the default is that your students can comment and post. That means your students can post pictures, they can post videos, they can post information, and they can comment to each other. You have three options here. If you click on it, you can choose students can only comment, which means they can't post the video, but they can comment the link to the video, if that makes sense. And then you have, only teachers can comment or post. So that means the student can still log in, they can still do their work, but they can't comment to each other and they can't post anything. You can turn these on and off as you want to. So I have some teachers that have turned this on for a certain assignment, like they want them to comment and post for a certain assignment, and then the other assignments they don't. So you can come here and change it as you want to. And just remember to hit that save button when you're ready to leave your class settings. Because if you click save, it brings you out. And then you have to come back here to the gear to get back in. So that's your stream. Then you have classwork on the stream. So for this one, it will determine how your classwork shows up on your stream. Now remember, the stream is where you do announcements. So what you want to do, my big suggestion, is to click where it says show condensed notifications and change that to hide notifications. What that's going to do is all of the stuff that you do on classwork will only show up on classwork. The stream will only be for your streamed. So it kind of separates these two and you won't have all of the junk from classwork on your stream. So it's really up to you. Show condensed notifications is what's happening right now, where it'll show a little box to say, hey, your teacher put something in there, you may want to go look at it. Or show attachments and details. What that does is it really makes your stream the classwork tab. Like it shows everything on your stream. So you can really decide how you want your Google Classroom to look. So this is a powerful button that they added. I'm going to leave mine on hide because I want that first part to only be for announcements. Bring your book tomorrow. Don't forget that class, the field trip money, all that kind of stuff. And then last but not least, in this box, we have show deleted items. This is your magic button. So if a student writes something inappropriate on Google Classroom and then they try to delete it, there is no true deleting in Google Classroom. If you come and click this and then click save, you'll be able to see everything that anyone tried to delete and it will just show up in gray. So keep that in mind. I like to call it my investigation button. Don't leave this turned on all the time because it can get really confusing. Because it also shows the stuff that you have deleted. So it gets really, really confusing really quickly if you add an assignment and then you delete the assignment and it still shows up in gray just looking at you. So only turn this on when you actually need to investigate something, or if you just want to see what's going on, like the hidden underbelly of your Google Classroom, and you'll see what anybody tried to delete. So that's it for this section. Then we have Google Meet and grading. So I'm actually going to skip this until we start talking about Google Meet. So this is the only one we'll come back to later. And then we have grading. If you don't use Google Classroom as your actual grading system, this may not be, this may be something you're like, that you don't really care that much about. But if you do use it for your grading system, then you may want to come and look at this section. Do you want to show the overall grade? So if they have an 89 in your class, do you want to show them that? The thing is if you don't use this as your main grading system, keep it on no overall grade. You don't want me to see the 5 assignments you went through Google Classroom and then it shows me I have a 95, but you actually have 100 assignments in your real grade book and I actually have a 55. So you don't want that, you don't want to confuse your students. So just keep that on no overall grade. But you can also say, I want them to see the total points, or I want them to see the grade weighted by category. So let's talk about those two differences. Weighted by category. That's when you're going to come down here to grade categories and you're going to say add or click add grade category. And you're going to say homework. If I put that this assignment is homework, that is going to be 5% of their grade. If I say test, so once I put in an assignment, I can mark it as a test. I'm going to make that 25% of their grade. And you get the point. So notice it shows you, hey, you have this much remaining if you want to use it this way. And then when they show them the overall grade will factor all this for you and put the grade there. Now, if you use this, notice it's not going to let me save it until I get 100%. So I'm going to go ahead and make this 95%. So I can show you when you're putting your assignment in how this little box looks. Because a lot of us don't have that little box because we don't use this. But I'm going to, there you go. But if you put total points, then it's not, notice everything is 100%. So everything is the exact same and it'll put that grade. So you can decide how you want to do that. Show overall grade to student, yes or no. If you put no overall grade, that's automatically grayed out. So that's why I said you can just do it right here. Because it's automatically saying no, don't show it. Alright, so there you go. I'm going to come up here and hit save. And the only time we're going to come back to the gear is when we talk about Google Meet. Save. That's it for the gear. And that's it for the people tab. Now, I want to look at the dashboard. So, the dashboard, you can get back there by clicking on what's called the hamburger. The 3 lines. Click there. And then click classes. That brings you back to where all of your Google Classrooms live. You also have your plus sign back where you can go ahead and add more classes. Your dashboard is organized by the last class you created will be here at the top. But you can also just take this and drag and put them in the order that you want to put them in. Yay! For each Google Classroom, you have these 3 dots right here. Sometimes they're a little hard to see depending on the picture. You have Move, Copy Invite Link, Edit, Copy, and Archive. Move does exactly what I just showed you. You can just take it and drag it and drop it, or you can kind of organize them here. Click on one and click, to the end, to the beginning. Most of us will just drag and drop. You have copy invite link. So that just copies your invite link and you can go send it to whoever. We already talked about that. This is where you can come to edit if you made a mistake. So if I spelled English wrong, I can now fix it here and it will be fixed. You have copy, which I'll talk about in a second, and then you have archive. So archiving your Google Classroom is when you want to start cleaning up your Google Classroom at the end of the school year. I'm not going to get into all of the cleanup function for Google Classroom, but except to talk about this button in the basics class. So you have archive. The first time you archive a class, under your 3 lines, under your hamburger, at the very bottom, you're going to see a button called Archive Classes. You're usually not going to see that until you archive your first class. What happens when you archive a class is that it removes it from the dashboard. I'm going to go ahead and archive. It removes it from the dashboard. See how it's going now? And it takes the student access away from the class. So that's even more important because you don't want your old students coming back to your old Google Classrooms. So it takes that access away. To get to your archive classes, I would come here to the hamburger and click on Archive Classes. This is where all of my archive classes live. I can actually come here and restore the class or completely delete the class. I do not suggest deleting the class unless you don't have any content in it. So if you've added assignments and things like that, just leave the classroom here because you have unlimited storage as a school account anyway. So I don't suggest deleting it. The only time besides it just being like a training class or, something like that is if you have, let's say, 5 of the exact same class. So I teach physical science, first period, second period, third period, and fourth period. I don't need to keep all 4 of them. I can delete 3 of them and keep 1, if that makes sense. So I'm going to restore my class because I actually want to keep using this. Click the 3 dots and go back to classes. So now my class is back. One of the tips I do suggest is if you're doing this, edit it and put the school year on it before you archive it. Okay, so I did a small tip. Okay, so copy. What copy does is it allows you to copy your entire Google Classroom to use over and over again. But when I say entire Google Classroom, what I really mean is it only copies the classwork tab. It doesn't copy the stream, it doesn't copy the students, and it doesn't copy the grades. It only copies the assignments that you've done, all of these that you've done in the classwork tab that we're about to get to in a second. But notice what it does. When it copies it, it puts it all in draft mode. That's pretty cool because what this means is the student cannot see this. Only I can see it. So I'll have to click on the assignment, click on edit, edit the assignment. We're about to go through all this nitty gritty in a second. And then when I assign it, it will show up for the student. So it's pretty cool because I can use the same Google Classrooms over and over and over every year and delete what I don't need. To delete it, I can just click on the 3 dots, delete this assignment, right? Or I can use it. Yay! So in the basics class, that's all I'm going to say about the copy feature. Notice you have a to-do list, a to review, and your calendar. If you click on calendar, this is the calendar associated with Google Classroom. So you can say, oh, I only need to see the calendar for this. And it'll show like this is due on this date. Your students also have a copy of the calendar. How do you get stuff on the calendar? You assign it using a due date. So if you put a due date on it, it's going to show up on the calendar. We're about to get to how to assign stuff in a second. You have to review. So this shows you, hey, these are all of the things that you need to review. You need to, work on or grade or whatever in your Google Classroom. So these are all the things that don't have a due date. And then you have to do. So this is where all of the assignments will live. So if I was a student, it will say, hey, baby, you still got this assignment you need to do. So what do I need to work on? What do I need to grade? When is everything due? Quick little buttons right here for you. You also have these two buttons down here. One is to lead directly to your grade book. It's the same thing as just clicking on the grades tab. Just a quick way to get there. And then this one leads you to the Google Drive folder. Every time you create a Google Classroom, it creates a Google Drive folder for you. So in your Google Drive, you're going to have a folder called Classroom. Never delete that folder. You can move it around, but do not delete it. In that folder will be every single Google Classroom that you've ever created. And there's some tips and tricks to cleaning this up. But it has all of your Google Classrooms in here. And then when you click in that, it has all of the assignments. Your student also has this. The only assignment that's not going to show up in here are Google Forms, because Google Forms live in Google Forms. But everything else will show up here. So this is an awesome way to save your students' work from year to year. This little button brings you directly to your folder, English third period. Of course, I haven't assigned anything. So there you go for your dashboard. Now let's finish the settings. If I come here, or the main menu. If I come here to the hamburger, I have classes, which gets you to your dashboard. Calendar gets you to your calendar, just like this button does. All of the classes that you're teaching with your to grade button. All of the classes that you're enrolled in with your do these assignments button. Archive classes. And the only thing that we haven't talked about, the settings for your entire Google Classroom. So remember I told you that the gear were the settings for this one class. But these are the settings for your entire Google Classroom. So this will affect all of your classes. So if I come here and click on settings, your profile will affect your whole Google account. So we're going to just skip that. This is about your whole account. Notifications. When do you want to get emails? One of the biggest complaints I get about Google Classroom is it sends me so many emails. So you can actually come here. Your students can do this too. They can come and you can come here and say, I don't want any emails at all. So that's this top button. It turns off all email. But the beautiful thing is you can actually choose when to get emails and when not to get emails. So it puts it in, hey, do you want to get an email when someone comments on your post? Click no or click yes. If it's a color, it's yes. If it's black, if it's gray and white, it's no. The reason why I can't say if it's blue is because this color is determined by what picture you put as your Google Classroom picture. And we're going to talk about that. So you have all of these. And then at the bottom, you have each class. So do you want to get a notification for everything, but not for this one class? Maybe this is my 4-H club Google Classroom, and I don't get any notifications, no emails at all for that whole class. You can turn it on and off by class. Notice that I clicked on the little caret to pull that down, the little arrow. So those are your settings for the entire Google Classroom. It mainly deals with email notifications. There is no save button. It automatically saves. So I'm going to come back here, and I can either click on classes or I can click directly in the Google Classroom right here. But I'm going to click on classes, and I'm going to go back into my Google Classroom by clicking on here. Notice whatever picture you choose shows up. So you can use this as kind of an organizational system. But again, for basic, I'm just going to show you how to do the picture. So I'm going to click here. Here is my picture, and now we're going to talk about the stream. So if I wanted to change this picture, what Google does is whatever you put on that top line, and then this was the second line, whatever you put on that top line is going to try to match up a picture for you. But if you're like, I don't like this picture, okay, you can click select theme and choose a different picture. Whatever picture you choose is going to make your buttons and all that change to that color. So let's say I want to choose this yellow. Ooh, purple. Select class theme. Notice my words are now purple. Buttons will be purple. It all follows that color scheme. You can also upload your own photo. So if I click upload photo, I do have to select it from my computer, which is a little odd. It doesn't let you select it from Google Drive, but oh well. So I would click select a photo from my computer. And let's do the minions. So notice it has this box. I'm going to make this box by dragging out the corners. I'm going to make it as big as I can. Okay, that's as big as the box. I need to decide what part of their body I want to show. I'm going to show their little cute faces. And click select class theme. So I just want to show you that it does put a kind of dark overlay over your picture. And it's really to help screen readers read anything that may be there. So just keep that in mind that it's not you didn't do anything wrong, but it could put that, dark overlay. And notice now my color is pretty much gray. So I'm going to go back and select my purple theme. And there you go. And now it's purple again. The other things you have up here are your class code. So you have a quick class code here that you can actually, copy and paste by the, the old-fashioned way, or Control-C. And you have your display button here as well. And a place to get your copy link. So this is the exact same as going to the gear like I showed you earlier, but you can also do it right here just for quick access. You also have your Google Meet link, and when we get to Google Meet, we'll talk about that. Let's hop into announce something. So announce something to your class. I'm going to click here. I'm going to say welcome. Notice I have an add button where I can add something. We're going to talk about this add button a little bit more when we get to classwork. But I do want to show you that you can add stuff to this announcement. You can cancel the announcement. You can post it right now. And if I post it right now, it's going to be instantaneous. The students will automatically see it. I can also come here to the little button right here. And I can either post it. That does the same thing as this button. But I can also schedule it and save it. So if I am not done with this, but I need to leave, I can save it as a draft and then go do other stuff. All of the saved and the scheduled posts will always live right up here. So I can click the little caret, click the little arrow, and now I want to work on my draft of welcome, or I can delete it. And now I'm back here. You can also come here and schedule it. So I don't want to send this right now. I want to send this, let's say on the 17th at, I don't know, let's say 10 a.m. I'm trying to not get that. Okay. And then I can click schedule. So now you see saved announcements. Now it says this is scheduled for February 17th at 10. If I don't want it to change that, I can just click on it. I can change it up here. Or of course I can cancel it, or I can edit it some more. I'm actually going to cancel this one. And I'm just going to do my welcome message again. And I want to show you the top two buttons. This button would allow you to send announcements and all of the stuff on your classwork. You can send it to multiple Google Classrooms at the same time. So again, if I teach 3 class periods of civics and I have the exact same assignment for all 3 classes, this is the easiest way to get it assigned to all the classes at the same time. Yay! You also have all students. This is when you can come to choose what students you want to send this to. So if you have a message that's just for Johnny, you can check right here to uncheck all the students and then go and check Johnny. Now, I only have 1 student in here, but then you can just find Johnny on the list and just check Johnny, right? So there you go. So you can use this button for group work. You can actually put your students into groups by just clicking the students that are in that one group to send something to. You can use it to send individual messages, like I just talked about. And you can use it for accommodations. So if I have 2 separate tests and this test with less test questions needs to go to my 5 students that have that accommodation, I can click here, choose the 5 students, send them their tests, and then I would do another assignment under classwork and send it to the rest of the 25 students. So this is really a magical button that you can use for different things. I do want to show you one tip though. If you choose multiple classrooms, you can no longer choose the students. Because Google's like, sweetie, I don't know who's in that other class. I'm just going to post it in there for you. So when you choose multiple classrooms, you can no longer choose all students. So keep that in mind. All right, that's everything you need to know about this little box. Woohoo! And we're going to go ahead and post our announcement. Now my student can see this. Let's go to the student account. So it says stream was updated. Oh, see how the color changed? So everything, and it will automatically show up here, but sometimes they just have to click show. So there you go. Yay! And I said that my student could comment, so that's why they have this little box where they can comment and say, welcome to you. I'm going to put hello as the student. All right. Going back to the teacher account. So I'm here at my teacher account and my student hello message should pop up at any moment. I'm just going to refresh. It's probably my computer being a little slow. So there you go. I have my student comment. And I just received an email that my student commented. So that's why you want to go turn off some of those notifications. All right. So there you go. So that's it for the stream. Yay. Well, one more thing. You have your upcoming right here. This helps your students know what work is due soon. So it'll say, February 25th, you have this is due. So, yay. And then they can click view all and see everything that's coming up. But that's it for stream. Classwork is where the magic happens. This is where you're going to spend most of your time in Google Classroom. So this is where you put all of your assignments and all of that good stuff. Notice you have another link to your Drive folder and to your Google Calendar. Same. You also have Google Meet. So we're going to get to Google Meet last. Let's look at create. After we go through grades and everything, then we'll talk about me. Create. So you have different things that you can create. You have creating assignment. That's something that you want the students to turn back into you. Ignore this one. That's because I have an extension called Cami. So just ignore that. You can do quiz assignment, a question, material, reuse post, and topic. And we're going to talk about all of these right now. So we're going to say, I want to create an assignment. Woohoo! Go ahead and give your assignment a title. You would put your instructions here. It doesn't all have to be caps. I don't want to show it that way. Then you have your add or create button that we're going to get to in a second. But let's go to some of these things. Same buttons here. Send it to multiple classrooms. Choose what students. We already talked about those. Now, you may be saying, hey, I don't have one that says grade category and point. Well, grade category. You should have points. But remember, when we were in the grading tab, I'm so sorry. When we were in the gear, remember that we turned this on. So that's why it's saying, hey, is this homework or is this a test? Because then I'll know what percentage to make the final grade. So that's why I have this. Remember I said I was going to turn it on so you can see that button. Most of the time, if you don't have this, you won't see this. How many points do you want it? It's always going to be defaulted to 100 points. You can say that it's not graded, or can't highlight, or I can put how many points I want it to be. So for example, it's always going to be 100, and even if you don't click ungraded, you can come here and change it. So I just wanted to show you that. Due date. If you don't put a due date on it, that's completely fine. It just won't show up on the calendar. So just keep that in mind. If you want to actually pop up on the calendar and pop up on their coming soon or due soon list on the stream, you need to put a due date on it. So to put a due date, you're going to click no due date and then click no due date again. I don't know why you got to click it twice, but there you go. Choose the date. The time, you don't have to put a time there, but if you want to put a time, that's going to be, whatever time is due. Now, if you want it to be due at the end of your class period, for example, then you need to put that time here. So if my class ends at 9:56 a.m., do y'all have those weird times too? I used to have those weird times, so where class ended. So there you go. And then to make this active, I could just click off of it and now it's there. I can click on it again and change this if I need to, or just say I don't need a time, blah blah, haha. There you go. Topic, I'm going to get to a little bit later. Rubric and check for plagiarism. So check for plagiarism, if you check this, if you're on the free Google account or Google for Education account, you have 5 assignments where you can turn this on. If you're on what's called Google Enterprise for Education, which means your school district is paying for the Google account, you have unlimited. So free Google for Education, which a lot of districts are still on, because the Enterprise one is new. So if you click and you see 5, that means you have 5 per Google Classroom. So 5 per Google Classroom that you can do. And what this does is it checks for originality. It checks for plagiarism. You can click learn more and learn more about it. I don't want to get too far deep into it, but it will give you a report on, did the student copy and paste this from somewhere on the internet and things like that. You also have a rubric. So if you needed to create a rubric, reuse a rubric from a different classroom, or import from sheets. I've never done import from sheets, but there you go. So I'm going to just hit create a rubric. So I need to grade this, let's say this essay, and I want to put a rubric here to make it easier for me when I actually go and grade it. So here's my rubric. You can do ascending or descending order. So you want it to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to say I'm going to be grading spelling. And then I can put, whatever description I want to put here. And then for 1 point, do I want that to be the best or do I want that to be the worst? Now, of course, if you're doing this for an actual grade, this would be the worst. So I can put, worst. Don't put what I'm putting. Bad, whatever. I'm just adding stuff very, very quickly. And then I can hit the plus sign. And then this will be 2 points. And this is good. And then hit the plus sign, and this is 3 points. And notice as I'm adding, it's saying that this is out of 3 now. If I delete this one, 3 dots, delete, now it's out of 2. So however many I add is what it's going to be out of. And this is great. All right, so there you go. Now, if I do ascending order, it's going to show 1, 2, 3. Descending order, 3, 2, 1. So, all right. So if I want to add a new one, I would just click add a new one and I would just fill this out the way I just did. But you can also, what I really like, is come right here to these 3 dots and click duplicate. So now I can just change this to punctuation, and leave all this the same. Yay! And notice now it's out of 6 points because this one is 3 and this one is 3. Love that. I'm going to hit save. The cool thing about using the rubrics directly from here is that not only do you see the rubric when you're grading, but the student will also see the rubric. So I'm going to call this essay. So there you go. I'm going to also go ahead and put the originality report on there so we can just see it all. So then we have add and create. So remember, as we're going through all of this, pause the video, stop the video, take notes, or practice with me. Now we have add and create. What create will do is just create these things for you right from here. So instead of you going to Google Drive to create it and then adding it, if you know you need a brand new Google Doc, you could just click Google Docs. It's going to automatically connect it. And then it's going to open up that doc for you. So let's say essay template. Now it's also saving this in your Google Drive because Google Drive is where everything is saved. So it's still saving this in your Google Drive. So keep that in mind. So I may put your title here and put your essay here. You get the point. All right. So I have it. It was saved. I'm going to click off of it. So there you go. And then I can also add. So I can add from Google Drive. I can add a link. I can add a file. And I can add a YouTube video. This is the exact same add button that you saw under the stream. When you were doing an announcement, and I told you I would get to this on the other screen, exact same. So if I want to add something from Google Drive, I'm just going to click Google Drive, and it's going to open up under my recent. But I can also go to my drive and choose anything from my drive. And it's organized the way that your drive is usually organized. You can change it to the list view or the grid view. List view, grid view. And that's getting into Google Drive, so I'm not going to get too far into that. But I can come here and choose that I want to add. Sure. I can add a link. So if I have a link to anywhere on the internet, I just can copy it right there. I can add a file from my computer. So notice it brings me to the upload button. And I'm glad they fixed that. So I can come here and add a file from my computer. And I can add a YouTube video. I can either search for the video right here, double click and add it, or if I already know the URL of the video, I can just click URL and paste it and then hit add. So look at me and all the stuff I have added to this assignment. Woohoo! So I would either click assign right now, or I would click these. Okay? Or of course you can just throw away the whole draft. But I want to tell you about 2 very common mistakes that teachers make when they first start using Google Classroom. So, first mistake. If you want your student to actually manipulate whatever you send them, excuse me, you want them to be able to edit it, you want them to be able to type on it, you want them to be able to do stuff to it, then it has to be a Google product. So it has to say Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Drawings, Google Sheets. So if you want them to be able to manipulate it, it has to be Google. If it's Word, if it's PDF, if it's PowerPoint, they won't be able to do anything to it. They'll just be able to see it. So keep that in mind. There is a way that you can take Word and make it take Microsoft and make it Google in your Google Drive. Okay, and again, that's a Google Drive thing. But it has to be Google whatever if you want the students to actually manipulate it. So that's number 1. Number 2, a lot of my teachers will put stuff here like a Google Doc, and they're like, hey, I followed Desiree's 1 rule. It's a Google Doc, so I'm fine. Not so fast. Because you also have this button right here that says students can view file. This is a biggie because a lot of my teachers do this and they're like, well, Google Classroom doesn't work because it's not letting my students type on anything. Well, that's because you said you only wanted the students to view this file. You only wanted them to read it. If you click here, you have 2 other options. Students can edit file. Well, a lot of my teachers are like, yep, that's what I want. And slow down, because students can edit file means every single student that you send this to will edit the exact same file. This is your group work tool. Okay, so if I wanted to come here and say, not all students, but I want student 3, student 4, and student 5 to work together, I would click student 3, 4, and 5 and then send them this. Because then all 3 of those students will be editing the exact same file. That's how you do group work. If you want your students to each have a copy of this that they work on individually, this is your copy machine button. Make a copy for each student. That means because it's a Google Doc, they will be able to edit it, but Google Classroom is going to magically make a copy for each one of them, and then they're working individually. This is the button you're going to use most of the time. So make sure you remember that, and make sure you remember that. So if you are using a Word document and you change this to students can edit file, it's still a Word document. So the student will only be able to see it. Now, if the student knows how to, do what they need to do in Google Drive to edit it, that's a little different. But there you go. So that's how you do this. You can click the X if you don't want this anymore. And if you do add a YouTube video that you've never seen before, you do have to add it first like I did, and then you can click it to actually view it. So that is it for my assignment. So I'm going to go ahead and click assigned. Notice that it was saving automatically. So I'm going to hit sign. Oh, no grade category. Okay, I'm going to choose one of those. And there you go. So now it has been assigned. That's the video that was playing when I actually, when I clicked on the video, this window opened to play the video. So I'm going to click off of that. And so now I have my essay. And remember, I was doing the sample one and then I clicked off of it. It automatically saved that as a draft. So when I say that it's auto saving, it really is auto saving. But I'm going to go ahead and click the three dots because anytime you have an assignment, you can click the three dots to edit it, delete it, or copy the link. So I'm actually going to click here and delete this one. But I want to show you when you come here to edit the assignment, a couple of things are missing. So when I edit, I can no longer send it to multiple classrooms, and I no longer have the third option to send it to individual students. So just keep that in mind that those two things change once you actually hit the assign button. Okay. So now we have quiz assignment, question, material. All three of these don't have too many different buttons from the first one, which is kind of cool. Once you know one of the boxes, you pretty much know all of the boxes. So I'm going to click on quiz assignment. What this does is it just automatically puts a blank Google form here for you that they have already set up in quiz mode. If you know how to use Google Forms and you know how to create quizzes and all that good stuff, you are never going to use this button. You're just going to do your quiz like you've normally done it and then just assign it in the assignment. If you're a newbie to Google Forms and you don't quite know how to use it yet, then this is a nice button because it just kind of gives you that blank quiz that you can set up and you don't have to know all the inner workings. But I do suggest learning much more about forms because it is an amazing tool. So there you go. That's the only difference within this is that it puts a blank quiz there for you, where if you come here to assignment and you add a form, it's just going to be a blank form. It's not going to be a quiz. So they already pushed that button to make it a quiz. But I do want to tell you one more thing about forms while we're here. So if I come here and I get a Google form from my Google Drive, if you've already made it a quiz, you'll see this button that says grade importing. If it's not a quiz, you won't see that button. So the grade importing button would allow you, after the students actually take the test on Google Forms, and you in the grading part, you'll have a button that says import grades. So it'll actually import the grades from the Google form into Google Classroom for you. So that's what this is for. And then you also have your locked mode button that you also have on Google Forms, where you can lock the test on the screen, but it's only for Chromebooks that are managed by your district. So I don't want to get any further into that because then we'll be getting into a forms class, but I just want to show you these two buttons that are specifically on Google Classroom. Next, you have the question feature. This is for a survey question, a poll question, an exit ticket, a bell ringer or do now. So that's what this is for. This is not a right or wrong. That's when you're going to use a Google form. This is just to ask a quick question. So I'm not going to go through this. We've already talked about all of the buttons on here. The only new button you have is short answer or multiple choice. So for short answer, the students will be able to type in their answer. And notice you can have, do you want the students to reply to each other? And do you want the students to be able to edit their own answer? Up to you for these two. If you choose multiple choice, the only setting you have is, do you want the students to see a class summary of what everybody put? So do you want them to see what everybody else put? You can say, your different options because you have multiple choice here. So, my first option is red. Click add option. My second option is blue. Click add option. If I type red again, it's going to say, hey, you've already typed that. So I'm like, oh, sorry. So I'm going to type yellow. And notice I can just keep clicking the add option button to add another option. The students can only choose one because this is multiple choice. If I didn't want one of these, I can just click the X and you'll get rid of it. And then on the other side, and notice I'm just moving my mouse over it. That's how I can, see everything. And then on the other side, I have these little double hot dogs. Double dots, whatever you want to call it. And that lets you drag and drop. So you notice when I'm right here, it's just my mouse. But then when I come over here, so it'll let me drag and drop and put them in a particular order. Now, the cool thing is, if you want them to see the class summary, or if you let them, see each other's answers, I should say, like if you let them reply to each other, when they go to put their answer, they will not see other students' answers until they put their own answer there. So I really, really like that. So you don't have to worry about them cheating off of this because they have to type their answer first. Then they'll be able to see everybody else's. So I'm actually going to ask a question. How is the weather? And I'm going to go ahead and access to the students. And yes, I want to ask it. That's fine. We don't need it in the grade. All right. So there you go. Then we have material. So material is when you want to give stuff to your students, but you don't need anything back. So you want to give them stuff and you don't need it back. Notice there's nothing in here that's new. So there's no grading here or anything like that. Because again, it's something I want to give to you. I want to give you my syllabus. I want to give you the link to the textbook. I want to give you that math handout that tells you all of the equations. Something you want to give to them and you don't need it back. Then we have reuse post. We love reuse post. What this allows you to do is reuse a previous post that you've done. So if I click reuse post, the first thing it's going to ask me is what class do you want to take a post from? Notice if you archive the class, you can also use posts from previous years. That's why it's important to put the school year on it before you archive it and not to delete it. If you delete it, all of it is gone. But if I wanted to use one from an archive class, I can use it. I'm going to use one from this class. And I have a whole bunch of assignments. I'm going to use this one. And notice the button to create new copies of all attachments. So that way, if you want to keep your data separate from one year to the next and things like that, you probably want to create a new copy of all the attachments. If you use something like a Google form and you wanted the form to be the old form that you used, you're going to have to uncheck that. So just something to keep in mind. So I'm going to click reuse. It's going to pop up so I can edit it and all that good stuff. But I'm not going to edit it. I'm just fine. I love everything that's here. I'll choose a category and hit assign. So that's it for this except for topic. So you may be looking and going, Desiree, what is that? What is this big organizing genius that you have right here? This is called a topic, and it helps you organize your Google Classroom. Notice that when this topic came here because it was attached to the assignment that I did in a different classroom. So if that happens, it will pull over the topic as well. But if I want to do a topic myself, I can come here and hit create topic, and I'm going to call this topic Unit 1. If I can spell today. There you go. So I have Unit 1. I can also create topics right here. So you remember I said I was going to get back to the topic section. So in my assignments and all the other stuff that I can create, I can put it under a certain topic. So notice these are the two topics that I now have. Or I can create my own topic right here. So you can create the topics as you assign stuff. Even material can go in a topic. So that's how topics work. You can use emojis in your topics and all those good. There's a bunch of different organizational tips that we can discuss. But for the basics class, we just want to see how to do it because it's already a lot of information, right? So we just want to see how to do it. So there you go. Now, how do I get something in this topic? Well, if I create an assignment and put it in the topic, now it's in there. Anything that you don't put in a topic will hang out here at the top. You can always move it. So I'm just dragging it into whatever topic I want to drag it into. I can also drag my entire topics and put them in the order that I want to put them in. So the one thing that we cannot do right now is have a subtopic. So you can't have a big topic and then a little topic and then stuff under the little topic. You can't do that. So that means you're going to have to come up with how do you want these organized? Do you want it by unit? Do you want it by week? Do you want it by topic, like Hamlet, and then everything for the Hamlet topic is under there? You have to decide how you want to organize this and then do what you need to do. When you use topics, it also lets you filter over here, and it lets your students do this as well. So it really helps keep you a little bit organized. Once you have 50,000 topics, your Google Classroom, I think you can have 100. Your Google Classroom does get a little, even though it's organized, it does get a little, a lot of stuff in it. So there are different tips and tricks for that as well. But for now, with you just creating everything, go to town. This is all you need to know to kind of get yourself set up to do all of this. So for create, that's your assignment, your quiz assignment. Remember, we're going to ignore this classing extension. Your question, your material, how to reuse a post from classroom to classroom, and how to use topics. The cool thing about reuse posts too is, remember when I said if you come here to edit, you can no longer use that third option, make a copy for each student? That can get really heartbreaking. So if that ever happens to you, you can come here and you can actually reuse a post from your classroom. So I can reuse a post from the classroom I'm using right now. And then if I do that, let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to reuse the essay one. And remember when I went back to it, I couldn't use that third button. But if I reuse it, now I have my third button back because it's a brand new, fresh. So I don't have to create all this again, right? That took time. But I can reuse the post, come here and do that, assign it, and then I can come here to the old post and delete it. So just a tip, and if that tip went over your head, don't worry about it. Again, that's why I'm trying not to give too many tips and tricks. But, and if it didn't, great. So there you go. That's how you use that. Now, we're going to move on to grading. And then, of course, the last thing we'll talk about is me. So this is your grades tab, and it's kind of set up like a traditional grade book. So if I wanted to look at each individual assignment, I could just click on the assignment and it brings me to the grading tab or the grading window. To get back, I'm just going to click on my my Google Classroom title. Notice, you see how that's grayed out until I move my mouse over it? That's because the student has not turned this in. When the student does turn it in, it's actually going to post this and wait for the grade. But if I wanted to come here and just give like a participation grade and just go down the list, because you see my students are all listed right here, I can just click on it and give a participation grade. I can do that if I wanted to. Okay, so I can click on it, just 100, 100, 100, 100. So that's how you can get to this. But under your classwork tab, if I know that I only want to look at the essay right now, I'm going to click on essay, and then I can click on either one of these numbers, turned in or not turned in. But I actually need my student to turn in something. So let's take a quick detour to my student account. So my student sees the filters, my student sees all this stuff. So I want my student to turn in the essay. So notice it's not on the stream because I turned that off. I said I only wanted the announcements to be on the stream. So they would have to click on classwork, click on essay. Ooh, I see the rubric, I see all this stuff. The proper way is for them to click on view assignment. And the cool thing about making them come to this screen is they see the rubric down here. They see the point value. They see the assignment. Like this is what they actually need to turn in. This is all the stuff that you gave them. And then this is what they actually need to complete. They can run their own originality report to see like what do you need to go fix, right? So if they run it, it's going to say, hey, 80% of this paper has a problem. Maybe they forgot to cite something or, whatever. So there you go. So they can run their originality report, and then of course you can run it as well. They can do a private comment to you as the teacher, or they can do a class comment if you have this turned on. If you turn off class comments, this will not be here, and they can always do a private comment directly to the teacher. They also have a handy dandy button, add or create, but I'll talk about that in a second. So I want my student to come into the essay, and they're going to say, this is the title. I don't know why I'm typing everything in all caps these days. This is my essay. Yay! So as a student, I am now ready to turn it in. What I like to tell my students is twice as nice. They have to actually click the turn in button twice to turn it in correctly. Now, a lot of us see this gray turn in button up here, right? I stopped telling my students to click this because it started showing up only on docs. But if they were doing a slide, there's no turn in button. Maybe it's updated, but so I stopped telling them to do this, and no to the share button. So if you have students turning stuff in and it goes directly to your email, that's because they're clicking the share button versus the turn in button. So what I tell them to do is once you're done doing everything you need to do, it auto saves, get out of it. So don't click anything else in here. You're done, it's saved, click out of it. And then you need to click turn in twice. Twice is nice. Turn in, turn in. If you don't click turn in twice, it has not come to me. Okay? And this is just saying, hey, you didn't do the originality report. That's fine. Okay? So turn in, turn in. I'm going to go ahead and run an originality report. So report shows matches between the text. I'm going to click run. Notice it's 13%. If it takes too long. Okay, so I'm good. No matches found. I should be good to go. So again, turn in, turn in. So now this is how it looks because I've already run the originality report. So turn in twice is nice. You have to click it twice. So once I click this, it's also going to say turned in. So there's a way for them to see that. Then if I click on the title of my Google Classroom as the student, notice it shows that this is grayed out versus being in color. That's because the student has already turned this in. So these are little things that you can teach to your student to help them manage Google Classroom a little bit better as well. Okay, I'm going to turn in 2 more assignments for my teacher. How's the weather? View question. One of the common mistakes that students make, I asked them this question and it was a short answer. They'll come here and say the weather is fine. And they'll say, I turned it in. And the teacher will say, no, you didn't. That's because this is a class comment. For them to actually turn this in where you can grade it, they have to come up here to type their answer. So again, twice is nice. If you're not clicking turn in twice, I do not have it. It's that simple. So just drill that into them. I don't care what kind of thing that you're doing, an assignment, a question. If you didn't click turn in twice, I don't have it. So now I can click find up here, turn in. Oh, it's only once here. Well, sorry for twice as nice on the question. They apparently updated that, but it's only once here. And then now I can see my other classmates' answers. Remember I said you don't have to worry about them cheating because I can't see their answers until I answer mine. So if I see classmate answers, there you go. Back to my answer. Now, it says edit because I gave them the option to edit. So if I'm worried about cheating, I'm not going to let them edit their own answer. Okay, so that's why I want to show you this kind of stuff so you can kind of see what you want to do. Because if I give them an option to edit, then they can come here and put a different answer because they saw their classmates' answers. So keep that in mind. Okay, and then they still have the private comments. I'm kind of sad that it's only once on here. Won't. Okay. And then I want my student to turn in this. View assignment. Uh-oh. The teacher didn't put an assignment here. The teacher didn't give them a Google Doc where they can type this. You know what? As the teacher, I don't have to give them a Google Doc because they have the add or create button I told you I was going to get to. So if I tell them create a slideshow or, write an essay, I don't have to give them a blank sheet of paper, but you do need to train them that they can come here, click add or create. So they can add a file from their computer, they can add a link to the internet, and they can add something from their Google Drive themselves, or they could just come here and create. So if I'm like, hey, I'm going to create a doc so I can turn this into my teacher, it creates it and it puts their name on it, it puts the title on it, just like it would do if you did it yourself. And now they can come here, blah, 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 blah. I'm done. Make sure it's saved. Beautiful. All right. Click off of it. Turn in twice is nice. Done. So you see how all this is grayed out and this is not? That's telling me I've already turned in all this stuff. Whenever the student wants to see the grade, because we're about to go grade it as the teacher, the student will just come click here, click view assignment, and the grade will be somewhere up here. I forget, like right here or right here. And that's it. Let's go back to the teacher account and let's grade some stuff now that we have some stuff to grade. So I'm back on the teacher account. I can come to grades and click into the assignment. Or I can just come here and now it says, yay, one person has turned it in. It looks like it's not letting me click on that anymore. Oh, that updated. So now I guess you can only click where the number is. Yep, that has updated. So you can only click where the number is. So if I want to grade their essay, I can click here. And there's two different grading screens. So this is the first grading screen for the assignment. And then there's the second grading screen. So on this grading screen, you can see each student's assignment will be in a little box here. You can see the ones you've graded, the ones you've assigned, or the ones that people have turned in. If you want to see the ones that are assigned, I have none because I only have one student. The cool thing about if it's a Google product, like a Google Doc, is you can actually click here and see them typing. So that's pretty cool. You can actually see them typing live. So because this student has turned it in, you see that this is no longer grayed out. I can also return all the grades to the students. I can change the point value if I want to. And I can click the gear to download all the grades. So if this is not your real grading system, you may want to download it and it's in a spreadsheet and it may make it easier to copy and paste or anything like that. I can come here and give my student a grade. Notice my rubric came up when I click this. But honestly, most of us are going to go into the second grading screen. It is a smoother grading screen, but this is still the first one. When I want to get into the second grading screen, I just simply click on one of the student assignments. So this is just a message about the originality report. All right, so the cool thing about this one is I see, all my student, what they typed and everything right here. I can go and choose what student I want to see next. So if I want to see, notice I can sort it by first name or last name or whatever the status is, like grade it and that kind of stuff. But I can come here and actually choose what student to see next. Or I could just click this and go from student to student. So I can actually stay right here in this second grading screen and grade all of my assignments. Notice I have my kind of regular Google Doc thing menu up here. But if you don't see the full menu, you can come and click this little caret to show everything like a real, like the Google Doc. So that hides it and that shows it. So other things I can do here is I can come on this side and I have my originality report. I can come here and give the grade. My rubric is here, so I can put the points in the rubric. Any private comments that the student gives me will show down here, and then I can actually do a private comment to the student. So notice it put the grade here because they made 3, 3, and now I put it as an 80. Because 80 was my total score. So it does all that kind of stuff for you. You don't have, oh, I thought I deleted that, sorry. So you don't have to worry about like, okay, well if it's 6, but it's 80, what is it does it for you. Woo, woo, love it. So there you go. You have all this. If you don't need to see the different like, great, you can just put this little, you can do the little caret so you can see them out here. But if you don't need to see them, you can just kind of hover over and they're there for you, but you don't have to like see the full thing. So you can also bring the rubric into a different screen, like into a new window. But you have all of your stuff here. So my student made a 40 out of 80. I don't like that. I'm going to give my student some points. Okay, so now they made full credit. Congratulations, student. All right, so notice it says that it's not returned. The last button that you need to click to make sure that your students can actually see the grade is you have to return it. So even if you don't put a grade, let's say I left the grade off. I don't know. Okay, it's going to do it. And I come here and I say, redo this. I think you need to rework it. I still have to return it. So your last button is always return. The cool thing is if you grade, let's say 25 papers, you don't have to return each one. You can just come here to this little arrow and say return multiple submissions. And then you can say, I want to return this one, and this one, but don't return Eddie's just yet. Or you can click here and say return all of my students and then click return. Okay. So that's the cool thing, but your last point, if you want the student to see the grade, it has to be returned to them. So the last thing I want to show you in the grading window is the comment bank. And a lot of people don't know that this is here. So this is, all the grading. And then you can click comment bank. So in the comment bank, you can add those comments that you use over and over and over again if you use commenting at all. So if you want to do that, you can click add to bank and notice add multiple comments by starting a new line. So I can say you did great. Click enter to add a new line. Check your spelling. For math, it may be show your work, right? You get the point. So then I'm just going to click add, and it's going to add them all for me. There you go. When I want to use the comment bank, I'm going to come here, highlight whatever I want to comment on. Notice my little regular comment button is here. So when I want to use the comment bank, I can click copy to clipboard and paste it here. Oh. Okay. Sorry about that. That's one of my extensions activating itself. I can click copy to clipboard and then paste it here. I can also click the 3 dots to copy. But what I usually do, I'm just trying to show you the whole screen, is you can either use the hashtag and then click a letter, and it's going to show you. So I put hashtag W, and it shows me these are all the ones that start with the W. Or I can just start typing it. Of you experiment. Yours. All right, there you go. And then I can go ahead and comment. So that's just a quick way to use the comment bank. A lot of the extensions that you're going to use or that you can use to do comments, you can also use them right here with Google Classroom. I'm not going to get into all that, but you can. So there you go. That's your grading screen. I'm going to hit return. Yes, I want to return it. Twice as nice. And now I'm going to go back to my Google Classroom. Notice that the grading screen opened up in a new window. So I can just come back to my old window. Or not window, tab, sorry. I want to use the right terminology. So I can get out of here and then come back. I'm here. To get back to my Google Classroom, I click the title. If I come to classwork, okay, I'm done with that. I don't know which one I graded. Okay, that one. Okay, this one. And then I can go to my grades tab. I didn't give them a grade. Oh, well. Well, I thought I gave them a grade. But you see that this is, let me refresh maybe. Did I give them a grade? Oh, no, I didn't. Okay. But notice that these are now active and these are still hidden because the student didn't turn these in. So that's how grading works. The other cool thing on the grading tab is you can actually get a student report. So if I come here and click on the student's name, it gives me a student report. So this tells me what the student has turned in. I'm going to go give the student a grade. Give me 1 second. Ignore the man behind the curtain. All right. My poor student with no grade. So now you see that that has been graded. So it'll show the grade that you've given. They'll show that they turned it in. You can filter it here on the side if you would like to. But the cool thing is you have this. You can actually click this little email and you can email it to the student and the guardian. If I left that guardian email in here, you can email this report to them. Or if you wanted to just print it out or something like that, you can just right click and go to print as PDF. And now I can save it and do whatever I want to with it. Right click, print. Instead of printing it to, I can print it to my real printer, of course, and then you can also save as PDF. And that'll save it on your computer. So that's how you can get a really nice student progress report. Grades, and then click on the student's name. Yay! So that is it for grading. And then again, if the student can actually see the grade in their Google Classroom, if you allow for that. So going back into our Google Classroom, we have discussed the People tab, We've discussed the settings for the class. We've discussed the dashboard. We've discussed the settings for the whole class for notifications. We've discussed the announcements on the stream. We've discussed how to do all of the creations under classwork. We've discussed grading. We've looked at the student side of things. We've looked at the class drive folder and the Google Calendar. And the last thing we want to discuss is Google Meet. If you don't use Google Meet, then you're done with this video. And that's why I save it till the end and I do the little recap right now. So if you don't use Meet, you're like, hey, we're not a Meet district, you're done. You have a great rest of your day. For everyone else, we're going to look at Google Meet through Google Classroom. Now, this is not a Google Meet class, so I'm not going to go into Meet and show you everything you can do with Meet. That's not what this class is for. It's for Google Classroom. But I do want to show you how you can set up your Google Meet through Google Classroom. So let's get started. On your screen, you see that it says Generate Meet Link. You can click this to start your Meet. You can also go to the gear and start your Meet here. So both of them do the exact same thing. I'm just going to do it from here in the gear. Generate Meet Link will give you a link. Ta-da! Do you want this link to be visible to students? Now this button is only under the gear. It's not in the other section. So if I come here, I'm going to discard this. If I come here, notice I can't click here to make it visible. So it's saying, it's saying that this link is not visible. So you can't change it here. So if I go into the gear again, I can say make the link visible to my students or not. So to make it visible to your students, you really want to think about or ask your district, whoever your Google admin is, what settings have been turned on. So what I mean by that is if your district has set it up to where students cannot create their own Google Meet in your district. So that means a student can say, hey, join me in Google Meet, everybody, and create their own Google Meet, that they have to wait for the teacher to create the Google Meet, then you can just leave this visible because that means the students can never get into this without you present. Now, if that has not been set up that way, then you may want to turn this off and only make it visible when you need it. So that is kind of a decision you're going to have to make. I'm going to leave mine visible because I have it set up to where students cannot create their own. So I'm going to hit save. So now anytime we need to use Google Meet, all I have to do is give them an announcement or give them, do a material and say, hey, we're going to meet at 6 o'clock on Google Meet. And I never have to give them a link because the link is always going to be here waiting for them. It's also going to be under classwork right here. So if I go to the student account right now, and let me refresh. Oh, well, it came up. So now my student has the Meet link and they have it right here because I said make it visible. If the student tries to go into the Meet link, it says, oh no, boo-boo, your teacher's not there just yet. So they can't get into it until I start the Google Meet. Okay. Going back to the teacher account. So I'm in the teacher account. I can come here to start my Google Meet because it's 6 o'clock and I told them that we were going to meet at 6 o'clock. So I can come right into my Google Classroom and click Meet. And it doesn't matter which one you use. Okay. I'm going to turn all this off. It doesn't matter which link you use. So you can use this one or you can use the one on the screen. Doesn't matter at all. And now I'm in my Meet, but I haven't joined yet. So if I go back to the student account and the student clicks it, it's going to say, hey, student, wait. Nope, the teacher hasn't started this meeting yet. So it's still not going to let them in until the teacher actually starts the meeting. So when the teacher says join now Now my students will be able to come in. So if I go to my student account, now my student is able to actually join the Meet. So that's how Google Meet works in Google Classroom. The cool thing is you don't have to create a new Meet link every single time. It's always here for you. This little symbol tells you that it's visible to my students. So if I'm like, oh no, I need to go turn that off, you can come here and turn it off, and then you have the little eyeball with the line through it to tell you it's not visible. The other thing you can do under the gear, and let's see how it looks when it's not visible to the student. So if I go back to the student account, notice that whole button went away and it's no longer under the stream. So when it's not visible, they mean not visible. They don't see it at all. So going back to the teacher account, if I go under the gear, the other thing that you can do under Meet is, you notice I have a little caret. I have a little arrow here with the link. I can reset it. So if for some reason something is just odd with your Google Meet link, something went crazy or wonky, you can come here to reset it, and it just gives you a brand new Meet link. Do I need to send that link to my students? No, because remember, it's just a button for them to click to go to Meet. So tomorrow, the button will just be different. It's not a big deal on their side. All they do is go and click the button. And that's the awesome thing about using Google Meet with Google Classroom. It just makes it so much easier to where you don't have to keep changing the links or getting new links or sending the links and what link are we using today. You don't have to worry about all that because the link is always just sitting here. Even if you change it, this just becomes a different link. The students, unless they're looking at everything, they won't know. Now, there are tips and tricks to doing stuff like this in Google Classroom, like creating breakout rooms, even if you have the free Google Meet. And I have videos for all that on my YouTube channel that you are welcome to go and look at. A lot of the tips and tricks for cleaning up your Google Classroom and all that kind of stuff is also on the YouTube channel. Of course, you can always get my contact information. I just want to make sure that you can get to my website, which is educatoralexander.com. So if you can get here, you can get to me. It has all of my contact information up here, ways for you to subscribe to my newsletter and subscribe to me on like social media and all that kind of stuff. And it also has my YouTube channel. So under the YouTube channel, we have all of the webinars that we do. We do a bunch of free webinars, and you can just click to see all. And the 5-minute tips is what I'm talking about. So you can click to see all, and there's a bunch of things here about using Google Meet. So if you're like, I want to know about using Google Meet, this is using it in Enterprise, doing background blur, Google Classroom stuff. So a whole bunch of different more advanced things that you can, come and see for Google Classroom if that's something that you're looking for. If you are, fine with everything I just showed you, then you are fine to get started, right? Get started. Then you can start taking it up a notch and doing different stuff. But for everything you need to know to start and be successful with Google Classroom, you just got it. You are done. I wish you luck with using your Google Classroom. Contact me if you have any questions, and I am happy to help. Good luck.